Hello, good afternoon. Welcome to the second NextETRUCK webinar in our webinar series for the late spring, early summer. We are now waiting 1 or 2 more minutes until people are arriving digitally, and then we have 1 hour of presentations related to the tools that were developed by our project partner from CENEX Netherlands and the UK. So yeah, I will wait 1 more minute so that we can start. Okay, welcome to the webinar, as I've already mentioned. So beyond this 1 hour, you will also be able to revisit the webinar on our YouTube channel. And if you have specific questions after each of the segments, we have a Q&A segment. Please state them in the chat and that we can specifically talk about them. I will briefly introduce the project because I'm the project communication responsible. My name is Niklas Schmalholz. I'm working for the Polis Network, and my colleague Elisa Gomez is doing the administrative part in the background. We'll look at the questions, we'll scan the chat, and then we have 2 presentations from CENEX. The first one is from my colleague Richard. He will present the KITE tool. He works at CENEX Nederland, and then his colleague will continue with the TEIDE tool. We don't really know how to pronounce this in the right way, if it's TEIDE, but yeah, it has a long project acronym, as we always know, and then we will conclude the webinar, the 1 hour webinar, again with a quick Q&A. So what is NextETRUCK? So it is not one truck, but there are multiple trucks, and it stands for Efficient and Affordable Zero Emission Logistics through Next Generation Electric Trucks. So again, a classic EU project acronym, and we see 3 different pilot use cases. One, the first one on the top, the F-Line Ford Otosan truck is operating in and around the east of Istanbul, between 2 Ford Otosan plants. The middle one is our refuse truck that has operated for 6 months already in Barcelona. And the third one is the DAF truck that has just started operation, where we kicked off the pilot in a digital form as part of the webinar series that we have done a couple of weeks ago. So everything is running. What are we trying to achieve? So basically, we are trying to optimize medium-sized electric trucks, and this is done through the component level, the vehicle architecture, and the ecosystem. And because the component level and the vehicle architecture is something rather fixed, today we are more looking at the ecosystem. That also means tools, digital tools, where freight companies and shippers can plan the total cost of ownership and the charging infrastructure stops, and can basically plan the transition from internal combustion engine trucks to electric trucks. And these are the 2 tools that we're going to learn more about today. And basically, the project objectives are to have these 3 trucks that you have just seen running daily for a period of 6 months and around 200 kilometers. And basically, the data that is being gathered is used to analyze the bottlenecks, but also to highlight that nowadays the business models of owning these medium-sized electric trucks for peri-urban and urban deliveries are a perfect solution, and especially as some of them are already market ready. So our innovations, there are a couple of elements. One is the drivetrain technology, so the physical component of the truck. Then we have the digital twins and optimizing the vehicle design to reduce the total cost of ownership. And then we also have the cost calculation tools, but that we're going to talk about today. And yeah, as I've already mentioned, these are the three pilots. And here you can see a brief overview of our innovative aspect and the use cases, the pilots that I've already mentioned. So what comes next? What I would like to emphasize is next week we also have the third segment of the webinar series, which is going to be the pilot results of the Barcelona use case that is going to take place also on next week, Wednesday, on the 10th of June at 11 a.m. until 12. And then we have something where we've been invited to. It's the digital breakfast where we're going to talk about heavy duty vehicle electrification, and that is going to take place most likely on the 26th of June. And there, our colleague from DAF UK will also speak in a framework that is organized by a group of German experts. So you can scan the QR code here, and also please register for our final conference that is going to take place as part of the Connecting Europe Days, and that is on Monday, the 28th of September in Brussels. It's going to take place at a very beautiful location. It's the Academy Palace, and that is next to the Royal Palace in Brussels, and it's easily accessible by foot when you're going to attend the Connecting Europe Days. That is just 500 meters from there. And of course, please engage with us. You can scan the QR code for the website and the LinkedIn page. But yeah, if you search us, you can always find us when you search for NextETRUCK, basically also on YouTube. So with that, I would like to conclude my introduction, and now I would like to give the floor to my colleague Richard from CENEX Nederland, who will start with his presentation for the first tool.
Thanks very much, Niklas. Let me just share my screen. And can you share my screen? Can you see my screen now?
Yes, but we can see the Zoom meeting.
The Zoom meeting. 1 second. And now?
Same.
Same.
Maybe if you stop sharing and then you share again.
And can you see my screen now?
Yeah. Perfect.
Perfect. Great. Thanks, everyone, and welcome to the session. My name is Rishabh Ghodge, and I'll be presenting the KITE tool that we developed at CENEX a couple of years back as part of the NextETRUCK project. KITE stands for Key Infrastructure for Truck Electrification. And the idea is that if you're someone who is planning to electrify your depot or planning to get your first electric trucks and need to plan the charging infrastructure for it, this is a freely available tool that we've developed, and you can use it for that purpose. I'll be providing a bit of a background and then get into the tool itself. So if you place this whole challenge in terms of the transport sector, we can see that there are many pathways that we have. So there's battery electric, there's fuel cell electric, and there's also various transport modes from light duty, heavy duty, and so on. Here we'll be focusing on one aspect of it. So we're focusing on battery electric trucks, and typically for heavy duty application. That's more challenging than battery electric for light duty application because these trucks are used for longer distances and they need therefore higher batteries. The loads involved are heavier, so there's more expensive batteries there as well. If you have big batteries which require heavy charging, there's more powerful infrastructure needed, so faster power, faster charging, and also high power charging, for which the grid is often not ready. And because of the payload and the weight needs to be fit onto the truck, sometimes there's more there's more strict requirements on battery weight and volume. So these are some of the challenges. And if we go to the battery electric truck status quo, we can see, so this is in Europe, the European stock, it's quite small. And as of 2024, when the latest numbers are out, so the World Electric Vehicle Outlook has just been launched, but those numbers aren't out, are very new. But the earlier numbers, so it's majorly a Chinese market. So 90% of the trucks in the world are in China. In Europe, the biggest markets are the Netherlands, the UK, Germany, France, with smaller amounts in Denmark, Sweden, Switzerland. And if we look at who are the main manufacturers, they tend to be also the main manufacturers of fossil fuel vehicles. So they're Mercedes, MAN, Volvo, Scania, DAF, Iveco, and Renault, with newer players starting to take a small market share. What's really driving heavy-duty electrification? So here we can see projections from the future, and predominantly the battery costs have dropped, and they're expected to drop further. People in the sector have talked for a long time about $100 per kilowatt hour being kind of the reference, and we're getting there, if not lower, at this point of time. There are also policies to reduce emissions and urban air pollution where a lot of these trucks operate. And for larger companies, there are also more important energy and carbon reporting involved that are pushing large companies, both shippers and transport companies, to shift their operation to electric drive. If we look at what's possible today, so this graph describes the share of the fleet on the y-axis to the number of kilometers of daily operation on the x-axis. This is for the Dutch market, but it's similar to many other countries, also going cross-border. And we see that urban delivery, which is around what this project focuses on, around the 200 or 250 kilometers per day. A large section of rigid trucks works in this area. And for construction, they're doing a few more kilometers. And for regional delivery in the range of 400 and long haul, which is going up as high as 1,000. But the majority of long haul vehicles are also around this 600 mark or so. And new models from companies like Volvo cover ranges of 700 kilometers. So the new vehicles on the market are able to meet a vast majority of demand from current truck missions. If you look at what's next, so here's a total cost of ownership analysis coming from the industry. This is from the freight forwarder Sender. They look at different countries, and the total cost of ownership is sensitive to the cost of electricity. This is for the different countries in Europe, so Belgium, France, Germany, Italy, Netherlands, Poland, Spain, and how the outlook changes across different prices of electricity. So the gray lines are where it's not cost competitive, when the electricity costs are higher, more than 25 cents per kilowatt hour. But at the lower range, they are all cost competitive, less than 20 cents. The change that's really happened is that diesel costs recently have gone up more than €2 per liter, and that's changing a lot of the economics of trucking. So if we look at the main challenges as we go towards decarbonization today, there was availability of trucks, which is starting to be less of a challenge, more vehicle models on the market. Access to financing is a major one, especially because electric trucks cost between 1.5 to 3 times what a diesel truck costs. There's a lot of uncertainty in knowledge, so clarity on the possible range of these trucks and what is required from the fleet that you already have. There's not a lot of reliable information on the cost of the truck, especially on the depot electrification. So how many chargers you need, what they cost, and can they meet your mission? Timely and affordable access to grid connections, in particular in the Netherlands, is a big challenge, but starting to make its presence felt in other countries as well. People talk about the enabling factors, so public and shared charging infrastructure. So here we're talking about public charging at locations as well as shared depots, which are starting to become more important. And finally, to bring costs of electricity down, knowledge of electricity markets amongst the various stakeholders. So in this range of challenges, the KITE tool helps with two of them. So it provides clarity on the range of electric trucks and how you can plan them for your fleet, and provides reliable information on the costs of truck and depot electrification. With this background, so CENEX has developed a large number of tools which you can access via the QR code, not just for trucks, but also for passenger vehicles. And many of the tools are created in research projects like in this one, so feel free to access them. But here I'll be speaking about the KITE tool, and the target audience for this is logistics companies in logistics operators in small companies. So this is the kind of company where you have less than 20 trucks or so. You're planning to develop go electric. So you're maybe in the process of purchasing electric trucks. So you're thinking about it in the next few years. You're planning your charging requirements. You're looking at costs. You're investigating financing and so on. The tool itself is fully online, so there's no downloading of executables. Nothing is required for you to do in terms of software, and it's also free to access via the website. In terms of planning of your depot, so there's three main stages. There's the preparation before actually doing any engineering works. There's implementation, which includes the grid extension, laying down the connections and cables, acquisition of charge points, commissioning of the site, and finally there's operation with the regular activities like maintenance and billing. The KITE tool aims to be used at the very start. So it's at this assessment and preparation stage to understand your charging needs and understand your load so you can plan for good implementation in the future. And how can you use it? So it's a general tool, but can be used actually in many ways. So, and these the things that can be used for basically follow the different pages in the tool. So initially it starts with your current mission. So the job that you have to do with your truck, whether it's a refuse truck, maybe it's planned for urban delivery. It tries to understand your mission and help you choose an electric truck with capabilities, including range and payload, which can match your mission and match it economically. Then once you've chosen your electric truck, you estimate the kind of charging infrastructure you need. So that's the types of chargers in terms of the power rating and the quantity of chargers, including a mix of them. Then it helps you, the next page helps you estimate the costs. So the costs of the trucks, the costs of the chargers, the costs of any renewables. So for example, if you want to have solar photovoltaics at your site to lower your cost of electricity, it also helps you make plans for that. You can also use it a little differently. So if you have a route in mind, but many routes that you do with your different trucks, and you're trying to find out which truck route is interesting to electrify, the one with the lowest total cost of ownership, you can also use the tool like that. And then you can also help to match different trucks with different routes. And finally, you can review the financials. So you get an overview of all the different trucks that you've purchased or you're planning to purchase in the simulation, and how they would operate, what your total costs of electricity are, how much you're spending in charging infrastructure, and so on. How it goes in terms of process, there's a little video that you have here. So you go to the site, you continue, you choose where you're operating, the type of truck, a rigid, articulated, something like that. Choose the number of vehicles. You can see your insights, so how many kilometers you're doing per day, state of charge. You'd go to the depot, you'd build your charging profile. You can see here you're charging at night. And then you see the cost curves. So It's split into the cash flow for the next 15 years, the duration of operation, and then you go through these different steps, and that helps you plan the whole journey. The advantages and limitations. So the nice thing is, in contrast with many of the tools which are available in the market, you have quite detailed infrastructure sizing. So you can choose the power that you need at your site. You can plan your grid connection. You can choose fast charging quickly and slow charging and compare them. It calculates the total cost of ownership, not just of operation of the truck, but also the acquisition of infrastructure and the electricity that you're spending in the lifetime of operation. You can identify and make an estimate of whether you need to make a grid upgrade and how much it needs to be. We don't know always the cost of the battery when the vehicle comes to its end of life, but we make an estimate, and this tool provides an estimate, and also provides the greenhouse gas emissions that you save by shifting to electric drive, with default values for many European countries in terms of costs, and you can customize it as you need. Some of the limitations, though, are that it focuses on depot charging at one depot. So if you're planning complex routes where some trucks are going to a different depot, charging over there, and then going to a third location, this is not the right tool for that kind of analysis. It doesn't include national and subnational level subsidies. And the main reason for this is that these subsidy schemes are changing all the time. So trying to make the tool available for multiple locations across a long frame of time, that makes it really challenging for us as the tool providers. And it doesn't consider the complicated electricity market arrangements. So if you have time of use tariffs, if you're planning vehicle to grid and selling electricity, or planning stationary battery storage at site, the tool doesn't calculate those. The results would look something like this. So you'd see your cash flow curve. In this example, you've purchased an electric truck with a loan, and this loan will be paid back in 5 years. So you're paying this loan over 5 years where you've got the cost of the truck. After that, you're mainly just paying electricity, operation, and maintenance cost over the 15-year life cycle. You'd expect to replace the battery in this case after 7.5 years, but more recent trucks come with longer battery life. And in this year, when you replace the battery, you'd also sell off the old battery. And you do that in the final year as well. This is just an example. So here you've got a down payment in the first year, and you can plan this all out. The TCO per kilometer in this kind of analysis is quite sensitive to a few factors. So these are the lifetime of operation, the electricity price, and discount rate. If we dive into that a little more in detail, you can see that it's most sensitive to lifetime. So if we vary the parameter by 10%, this is how much you change. The lifetime, so if you want to reduce your total cost of ownership per kilometer, basically you'd use the vehicle as long as possible, try to secure electricity for as low a cost as possible on average. Discount rate, this is not up to you. Typically, it depends on the country you're in, but try to maximize the annual amount of kilometers driven. But this is the priority in which you'd look at these parameters, to which they are quite sensitive. The biggest gains to be made in the lifetime category. So the main takeaway messages from the KITE tool operation are battery electric trucks are very close actually to diesel trucks in total cost of ownership. The exact value depends on the country you're operating in. So in the Netherlands, light vans and medium duty trucks are already cost competitive without subsidies. And in the heavy duty sector, they are competitive with subsidies. But again, the Hormuz crisis is changing this. The main reason for cost competitiveness of electric drive is the lower cost per electric kilometer. And this will just increase in the future. So as the cost of electric vehicles comes down, as the more vehicles come onto the market, these trucks will be ever more competitive compared to diesel. If you'd like to reduce your total cost of ownership per driven kilometer, you'd like to increase your lifetime, lower electricity prices, and drive higher annual distances. Because of the expected improvement in technology of electric vehicles, we expect considerable reduction in total cost of ownership. Also with planning tools that help with route optimization. And to help you on your electric journey, the KITE tool is freely available for you. Thank you so much, and back to you, Elisa. If there are any questions, just let me know in the chat.
Yeah, thank you very much, Rizab. Indeed, if you have any question, you can write them on the chat. We can take some questions right away for Rizab presentation, and then we will also have some time after after all the presentations. Maybe if I can ask you one thing related to the total cost of ownership. I wanted to know how does it compare with diesel, and how does that change with the crisis?
So right now, what we've seen in a couple of sectors, so there's the construction sector, bus sector, truck sector, all of whom are facing this exact question: go electric, stick with diesel. The ones that have already shifted electric are very happy with their decision because they've avoided huge operational cost increases, and they're glad that they made this decision early. The ones that have not yet shifted electric, so these are big investments. They require a lot of planning, and the life cycle, the kind of planning horizon is in the 3 to 5 year. So there's quite a lag between costs increasing today and making the shift to go electric. So we expect that to play out in maybe the next 2-3 years. It's much different from the passenger vehicle sector where the market response is much quicker. In the heavy duty market, it'll be a couple of years in the play, but it is pushing towards that direction.
Okay, and except the cost that you mentioned, what would be the other barriers against going electric?
So some of them are the just unawareness of what's out there and the kind of paradigm of electric drive, because it requires planning for electricity. It requires understanding of electric vehicle technology. It requires training of drivers as well. It requires sometimes digitization of routes, especially if you have en route charging along the way. You need to have your navigation system support that, guiding drivers to the good locations for affordable charging. Sometimes lack of knowledge, and the enabling factors are sometimes also mentioned. So that's availability of public charging infrastructure.
Yeah, so still a long way to go, but thankfully through notably the NextETRUCK project and similar projects, we are going towards that. Thank you very much, and I hand it over to Greg now for his presentation.
Thank you, Elisa. Thank you, Risha. Just share my screen here, so bear with me a few seconds. Okay. Hopefully you can all see the screen I'm sharing.
Yeah, perfect.
So, thank you. Yeah, I'll be talking with you for a few minutes about the TEIDE tool. So, another tool that we've developed through the NextETRUCK project. And yes, the pronunciation is TEIDE. Refers to mountain, a Spanish mountain that is also a volcano. So let's first talk about the challenges of modeling charging infrastructure. And there's different facets really when we think about modeling charging infrastructure. The first one is coverage. And that is, are we getting the right number of charging points in the right locations? So we're enabling all drivers to access the charging that they need to complete their journeys, to perform their missions. And now they're able to access equitable charging. Also, we need, within this sort of facet, we need to think about, are we going to meet the peak demands for charging? Now, if you're creating a charge point network, you have to think about how the demand for that varies across the day, through the week, and through the year. And it might be that if you size your network to cope specifically with a peak throughout the entire year, for example, during holidays or some season like that, when a lot of people cars, for example, might be traveling a long distance, then that might not be the most cost optimal solution, even though it could give the best customer experience. The second area where we can think about with charging infrastructure is utilization. So this is really what charge point operators will care about in terms of trying to understand the business case for putting chargers in certain locations. And to understand the utilization of charge points that have been installed or potentially would be installed, we need to consider certain things like the EV adoption rate. So how many EVs are there now and in the future? We need to think about the competition of other chargers. So are there other charge points that are down the road, opposite, or going to be built in the coming months or years nearby? You need to also think about the number of EV drivers that pass the location, potentially stay near this location or heading to that actual location as a destination, or might just be passing nearby. And then we need to think about, will the drivers that do pass, will they actually need to or want to charge at that location? For example, if you think about car charging in this example, if somebody has a driveway at home and they have a home charger, most likely they will be able to charge for a cheaper rate using their home charger in an off-peak tariff. So they're unlikely to charge out and about on a public charger. So things like that need to be considered. Conversely, for talking about truck fleets, if they have depot-based charging, the same may well apply, that they may be able to charge for a cheaper rate overnight at their depot rather than doing something on public or en route charging. And the final area to think about is the actual installation of the charge points. So this is where you need to look at land suitability, accessibility, the planning permissions there. If you're thinking about car charging, then pavement widths might be of importance when you're thinking about on-street charging. But you also certainly will need to look at the grid connection costs or the distance to the nearest substation from your site to do your charging. So it's quite a broad area of different things that need to be considered when modeling charging infrastructure. And the TEIDE tool is designed to look at the central one here, which is the utilization. As that's such a key question for a lot of charge point operators, is to understand how much certain charge points would be utilized if they were to be built in a certain location at a certain time. And that's why, in part, why we created the TEIDE tool. So TEIDE stands for the Tool Evaluating Infrastructure Deployment en route, and primarily answers that question of, if you put a charge point at this en route location, what energy-based utilization could you expect to get from it both now and in the future? The target audience for this tool are primarily CPOs who are looking to plan public charging infrastructure or passenger vehicles or heavy-duty vehicles such as trucks. And the outputs that you can get from this tool are, as I've mentioned already, the charge point utilization. You could also understand the daily charging sessions or the annual energy delivered from the site, and also the annual margin from the site. So how much money you'll be making from all of your charging sessions across the year. But what else could you use the tool for? Well, apart from forecasting the charge point utilization, which we've mentioned, you can also understand the impact of nearby competition on your proposed site. It could provide recommendations for some of the top locations to put your en route charging. And you can also help you inform on the wider retail revenue for your site. So it might be that you co-locate your charging with a cafe and you expect a certain amount of revenue to be made from selling cups of coffee or the like to people who have stopped to recharge their vehicles. So we're going to help you in that area as well. In terms of the scope of this tool that we've developed, so geographically it covers the whole of the UK and the Netherlands at the moment, but we can expand that to further countries as we need to. And it looks at analysing the charging for both cars, light goods vehicles, and heavy goods vehicles. So the full spectrum of vehicles, really. What it doesn't do is it doesn't look at the feasibility of putting charging in a certain location. So this doesn't look at the grid connection or the land permissions or those sorts of things at the site. And it doesn't actually provide a final business case for your charging. We have another tool that does that. That's actually free to use, that's called CIBCAT, which you can obtain from the CENEX website. But this will give you some of the inputs for that business case, but it won't cover the whole business case for you. So how does the tool work in itself? Well, first of all, we start by picking or providing the tool a location. From that location, we can then calculate the passing traffic using data on trip counts for the nearby roads, and we can convert that into the number of passing EVs. Then what we need to do is work out of those passing EVs, which of those will actually need to charge. So that's the next step. And of those which need to charge, we need to work out which ones actually will charge. So just because it needs a charge doesn't mean to say it's going to stop at your charging station. It might choose a competitor, for example. Once we know the number of EVs that are going to charge per day at your site, then we can work out the daily energy profile of that charging site. And from that, it's a simple calculation to work out the utilization for each year that we have the data for. So going back through in a little bit more detail, to calculate these passing EVs, yes, we'll need we work out the nearby vehicle trip counts. And we also combine that with the current number of EVs on the road and future EV uptake forecasts. So at CENEX, we produce, certainly for the UK, we produce comprehensive electric vehicle uptake forecasts across the UK. If we don't have that for other countries, we can also go by other published forecasts and plug those into the model. Then to work out the EVs that need to charge, we have to work out this so-called need to charge factor. Here we take in data to look at the length and origins of people's trips, the range of the EVs, and whether they have other charging options. So whether they have a depot charging option or if they've got off-street parking or home charging in the case of cars. And we'll filter some of those vehicles out to reduce the number of vehicles actually we need to charge. Then to work out whether they will charge, we consider the nearby charge points, so what competition is there. Also factoring in any sort of additionality that your site or proposed site might offer, such as other facilities. During the work for this, we went out with a survey to EV drivers to understand some of these additionality factors that were important to them, such as toilet facilities or cafes or space to move around and have a walk or whatever these might be. And then finally, once we've got down to this stage, we work out the daily energy profile. And for this, we use some standardized charge point usage profiles based on data we've gathered from other charge points. We also cap the maximum power that is available due to EV compatibility as well, which we vary in the model by year. All of those steps sort of take us down to calculate that final charge point utilization. I mentioned briefly that we did a survey of EV drivers to get some additional inputs. We found when we were creating this model, we couldn't get everything from existing data. So we went out and surveyed existing EV drivers, and we did that in the UK to understand some of their behavior. You can see here some of the answers. Well, one of the questions that we asked them about how much they would seek to recharge their vehicle to when they stopped. It led us to some quite useful insights that we then converted into inputs into the model. So we've used this, so for example, to understand whether vehicles can charge at home, for cars specifically, how far people would be willing to divert the journey to charge, and then of course, as we see in this result here, how much they recharge by. So I've now talked a little bit about the tool and how we've developed it and how it works. So let's jump into having a look at some of the results from the tool itself for a specific case study. So I've picked an example site here in the Netherlands. I've picked it near a major road and potentially thinking about, should we install a 350 kilowatt charger for HGVs close to this major road? So you can see one of the screenshots from the model here with the site is the green pin on the map. And then we can see the red pins on the map are the nearby charge points that already exist. So that's our competition. And those have been filtered to just 350 kilowatts and above, as we think those are the ones that are only potentially suitable for charging trucks. So now we look at some of the other outputs from the model. So the top right, we can see the number of vehicles that are traveling by. Perhaps if I jump back to this one for a second, I forgot to mention that we've got 3 different isochrones on this picture. So we've got the yellow one, which is a 5-minute driving time from the site, the sort of pinky one, which is a 10-minute, and then the other bluey colored one, which is a 15-minute driving time. And so what we do is we analyze each of these isochrones based on people's willingness to divert and the traffic counts from each of the rows in each of those isochrones. And that we use that data to populate charts like the one that you can see the top right here, where we have the number of vehicles that are traveling in each of those isochrones per day. So we see we get looks like about 9,000 vehicles traveling in the 0 to 5 minute isochrone. So quite a good number of vehicles that are passing. From that as well, then we can work out the total daily charging demand based on all these isochrones. So you can see starting in 2020, 25 and 26, it's pretty low, but then it increases steadily over time as our forecast amount of EVs on the road does increase as well. So this next one takes that demand and then converts it into the required number of 350 kilowatt charge points in each of those isochrones that would be needed, with each charge point gaining a 20% utilization of energy delivery, essentially. And what we can see from this chart is that actually up until 2027, it looks like we only need 1 charge point in that area, that power. Because we've got actually quite a low demand, and then slowly it steps up over time as more charge points need to be added to meet that demand for charging. So quite a useful way of seeing how you might want to think about rolling out infrastructure. And then finally, all this can be converted into looking at what a percentage utilization the particular site that we're proposing might gain over the coming time. Now, as might be a bit of a clue from that previous slide, we saw that in 2026, we only needed 1 charge point across those isochrones. As a result, if we put a charge point in now, we only get about 1.2% utilization. Now, we saw going back a few slides that there are already charge points at 350 kilowatts installed in that area. Hence the low current utilization, because we're just adding to an already saturated area. However, that does improve over time. So from this analysis, we can see that this isn't a great place to put a charge point because there's already sufficient coverage there by the existing charge points, and it takes quite a while for the demand of EVs and the increasing electrification of trucks to catch up and meet those, saturate that demand for charging. And finally, on this slide, we can see the annual margin that you could forecast from the site. So this is the charging margin. I think this is based on just 10 euro cents per kilowatt hour delivered. And you can see how much revenue you'd be getting from your charging in each year. So what are the main advantages and limitations of this tool? So on the advantages side, it gives us a traffic flow based assessment of sites. You can adjust it for different EV adoption forecasts. So I think in the current one, I was using our mid forecast, but you can change that to a high or low or a bespoke forecast. This tool works for heavy duty and passenger vehicles. So it works with different types of vehicles. And it's easy to replicate for different locations and countries, and also scalable for batch processing of sites. There are a few limitations at the moment with it. We have done validation on the tool, but only for a limited number of sites. So it's not fully generalizable to all locations potentially. It's enabled currently just for the UK and Netherlands, and it doesn't consider factors for site feasibility such as grid connections. That's out of scope for the particular tool. So the main takeaways I think from this are that there's not that many electric trucks on the roads now, so finding the right site actually can be quite hard. But utilization really is the key factor in terms of creating a successful business case. Just because you get utilization doesn't mean to say that's where you should put charging. However, it's certainly a necessary condition. And if you understand your utilization forecast well, then it can lead you down the road to think, do I really want to do a full assessment on the site and check whether the lamp emissions and the grid connection and everything else is going to work out. And the TEIDE tool is very good at doing that. Now, it's not publicly available, I'm afraid, this tool. But if you are interested in using the tool, then please do reach out and contact us. We are able to license the tool for people that would like to use it, or we can work on a different basis and run the tool ourselves for you if you'd like to work with us on that. So thank you very much for your time. I'm very happy to take a few questions.
Thank you very much, Greg. And yeah, to the participants, if you have any questions, it's the moment to write them in the chat. And I have a question. So you said the tool was currently enabled only for the UK and the Netherlands. Are there any specific reasons why it works better in these countries, or can the tool also, could it be used in other countries than the ones you mentioned?
Yeah, it's a great question, Liza. The only reason why it's specifically works for the UK and Netherlands is because we've configured it to work with the traffic data that's available in those two countries. It takes a little bit of work just to configure with the specific data format of sort of road networks and traffic count availability. So there's a little bit of setup, but once that's done, we can do that for any other countries where there's publicly available data. So it's just a little bit of setup time, and then it should work absolutely fine once we've configured it to work.
Great, and that's maybe to both of you looking a bit ahead. What would be the best perspectives or future for this tool if everything was going well in the world?
Perhaps Rishabh, you want to jump on that one first?
Oh, sure. I think for the KITE tool, I think the nice thing is maybe to help it do more complicated routes. So if you've got one depot, that's fine. But if you have complicated routes, multiple depots, if you want to have a battery on your site, if you want to play around with complicated tariff structures, these would be the interesting use cases that we'd like to develop further. For TEIDE, I leave it to Greg, but I would like to see maybe a little bit more on the feasibility of sites, so to take it one step further when you're doing the planning.
Yeah, absolutely. You took the words out of my mouth there, Rishabh. I think firstly, it'd be nice to if we can expand some of the coverage. So we already have data on charge points across the whole of Europe, and in fact, the whole of the world. But it's some of the traffic data and configuring that for different countries would be really good if we could get better coverage across Europe. But beyond that, I think the next key thing is really understanding the grid connections. It'd be really nice if we can link this up to DNO maps and capacity maps so that we could also filter sites by available capacity on the electricity network at the same time as doing a traffic analysis, because then that covers two of your key constraints when looking at new charging sites, and we could do that in one go. So that'd be a really great addition, I think, for the next steps.
Okay, great. Very interesting. Thank you very much, both. I see that people are very shy today. It seems that there's no question in the chat, so we can leave it here. Thanks a lot. The recording will be made available on the NextETRUCK YouTube channels alongside with the other webinars. And get ready, because in 1 week we will have another webinar as part of the webinar series with the results of the Barcelona pilots, which will be on the 10th of June at 11 a.m. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.